everyone! Yoo-hoo! Welcome to our cooking show! Today, we'll be teaching you how to make words. Words are like food in that sense. They are created, formed, derived, and processed. For our first segment, we'll have me, Chef Nuri, explain the first 3 recipes of how we will make our food. The first recipe is always the simplest. We'll be making the word humanity. Now, in a bowl, we first add the root word human. Now we add 1 scoop of the suffix ity, mix them together, and we get humanity. For the next recipe, we will be making the word sculpt. To do so, we need to take note of the origin of the word itself. What are we sculpting? And who is the one sculpting it? Taking this into account, we realize that the existing invention or word is actually sculpture. Now let's lay that down on a cutting board. Instead of adding an ingredient, we're subtracting it. So let's slice off the suffix ure, and there we have it. We've made the word sculpt. Compound word. This recipe is a bit crazy because there can be 3 results from the same recipe. Here, we need 2 or more words. But to show you guys the different foods we can make from this one recipe, we'll need 6 words. Now, in a bowl, add some and body. When we mix, we'll get the close compound, the single word somebody. Now, in another bowl, let's add well and being. Now, we'll add a hyphen. What we get is a hyphenated compound word, well-being. In the last bowl, we'll add the words peanut and butter. Instead of mixing it, we can eat it just as it is. The result is peanut butter. Let's understand something with compound words. Their meaning is also dependent on the context for which they are put in. Say I need a cup of brown sugar. But oh look, there are 2 bags of sugar. A brown sugar bag and a brown sugar bag. They look the same, but for this recipe, I need brown sugar, so I know to reach for the brown sugar bag. See? I knew which to reach for despite the same appearance because of the context it's in. This way, the recipe doesn't go wrong. To finish off my segment, here is my last recipe for you. We will be making the words each bowl and IRL. To do so, we need to understand that these words are actually multiple words that are represented by their first letter or initials. Note that one cannot be articulated and the other we have to sound out each letter. That means that this recipe also has 2 results. Let's first lay out the words I just burst out and laughing. Now, we cut off the first letter of each word and add them to a bowl. There we have it, each bowl for IRL. Next, let's lay out the words in real and life and do the same as we did before. Now we have IRL. I'll pass it on to our next chef. Till next time, goodbye! Yoo-hoo!
Hi everyone, this is Chef Aisha. Welcome to my segment of our show today. I will be showing you guys 5 recipes, so stay tuned and follow along. This first recipe, I will show you how to make Achilles tendon. To start, let's understand that words made using this recipe are derived from the name of a person, often the inventor or discoverer of a certain thing. Now that we understand this, we'll add inventor or discoverer, which in this case is Achilles, and the particular thing that they invented or discover is the tendon, into the bowl and mix it. And there we have it, Achilles tendon. Now, this recipe is a bit tricky, so stay along with me. We'll be making the word Tupperware. When you think of the word Tupperware, what comes into mind? Food containers, right? You might have even said Tupperware instead because it's so ingrained that food containers are known as that. So that is what the recipe is, a brand name becoming an ingrained trademark for a certain thing. So in a bowl, we'll be adding brand name, which is Tupperware, and the thing, food containers. Mix them so well that people can barely taste the food containers. Now, let's make the word bromance. We will need 2 words, brother and romance. First, we cut off half of the words. Then, with the sliced half, we'll mix them in a bowl. Once they are mixed, here we get bromance. Not only we have combined the sound of the words, but also the meaning. A 2-in-1, if you will. Similar to one of Chef Nurin's recipe, in this one, we'll be reducing a word to create a new one. Let's make the word admin. To do so, we have to cut illustration from the existing word. And there you have it, admin. Just like how there are special cuisines in every country, in this recipe I'll show you how to make words favorite especially in Australia and Britain. To do so, the longer words will be reduced and a new suffix is added. Get your cutting board and lay out the word handkerchief. Now, we'll cut it and into the bowl it goes. Then, we'll add this suffix E and mix it together. There we have it, hanky. Now for the word hipster, we do the same and cut half of it. Then, we put it in a bowl and mix it together with the suffix P, and we get hippie. This next one is less of a recipe and more of a footnote, a trick to spice up a dish. Just like how a chef uses spices originating from different countries into a family dish, speakers of a language incorporate foreign words like poltergeist from German, candy from Arabic, and orangutan from Malay into their native tongue. These loan words add a unique flavor to the language, enriching its vocabulary while still maintaining and keeping its original essence intact. This trick is similar to the prior footnote, but with the only difference being that the incorporated foreign words is translated word for word into the native tongue. For example, like the word Superman, which is the mirror translation of the German word Übermensch. Now for this recipe, let's make the word Vaseline. The technique that I'm using in this recipe will need us to create words from scratch, which means we are inventing a completely new word through sources like commercial products, technology, music, and cinema. Vaseline was made in 1872, trademark for an ointment made from petroleum and marketed by Cheesebro Manufacturing, coined from German word Wasser, which means water, and green, a lion, which means oil, and scientific sounded ending in. There we have it, Vaseline. Wow, now, so that was messy, but the mess doesn't stop here though. Let's go to our next chef.
Hi everyone, I'm Honey. Welcome to my segment for our word formation cooking show today. So, to prep the first dish I'm cooking, the method I'll use will consist of a word that has its own meaning at the start, but that meaning is then extended and broadened to refer to more things. This is called meaning extension. Here we have a bowl of sun and a bowl of rice. When we combine them, they form the word sunrise. Notice how both words had individual meanings before we mixed them, and after it meant something more. That's exactly like cooking. The ingredients would have their own taste as well. As much as the method of extension leads to scrumptious and absolute deliciousness, this next ingredient implements the meaning narrowing method. This occurs when a word evolves from a broader meaning to a more specific one over time. For instance, consider this dough I have here. While it once referred to any type of bread or pastry, it's now narrowed down to a specific type of flour-based mixture used in baking. Still, it adds the same wonderful texture and flavor to our dish. Now that we've prepped the ingredients using the meaning extension and meaning narrowing method, let's dive into cooking. Today, we're cooking a staple American dish, the classic hamburger. Speaking of classics, let's explore how analogies spice up language just like adding new twists to a familiar recipe. For instance, frosting is a playful twist on the classic icing. A real-life example would be text bombing, which mirrors mail bombing but with digital messages instead of physical letters. Words, just like food, adapt their forms to express new ideas, much like how we adapt toppings to create new flavors. Moving on to the holy grail of most dishes, the sauces. In order to prep the sauce for my burger, we'll implement the double word formation process, where we make a word from an already formed one, or in this case, a sauce from already existing sauces. We're going to make two sauces today. For the first sauce, we're going to create tweeting from the base sauce, Twitter. Without Twitter, tweeting wouldn't be a thing. Therefore, we're going to add just a little bit of Twitter and gerund, and there we have it, our first sauce complete. The same case goes for our next sauce, which is TikToker, that has the ingredients from TikTok and Well, it wouldn't be a burger if all the components are just laying bare, right? If you look at them right now, they look like building blocks ready to be stacked, just like how words are. They're building blocks too. For example, we have nouns that act as prominent blocks and determiners which can be divided into many blocks of definite or indefinite. There's also demonstrative determiners and possessive determiners. Without these blocks, not only would English be incomplete, but my burger wouldn't be a burger too. Even though that's all for my dish today, I'd like to give you guys a few pointers about knives, a staple tool in the kitchen. In English, we call this as relations to syntax. We have tons of different knives that have different responsibilities. So let's break it down. This knife is a noun knife, but often mistaken with the pronoun knife. The pronoun knife differs as it replaces a whole noun phrase, but the noun knife heads the noun phrase. Next, the possessive determiner knife that must be followed by a noun, and the possessive pronoun knife, which are not followed by a noun. Third, the demonstrative determiner knife, similar to the possessive determiner knife, must be followed by a noun, while demonstrative pronouns don't. I hope you guys try out my recipe. Up to the next one!
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Chef Kai. Welcome to our kitchen, where we're about to whip up some delicious noun stew. Just like a stew, nouns comes in different types and play various roles in a sentence. Let's break it down, shall we? Now, before we begin with our stew, we need to better understand our recipe's ingredients and components. We understand that this is a noun stew, but a derivative of this recipe is the pronoun stew. How different are they? A noun stew has words that typically represents a person, place, things, or idea. They function as a head of a noun phrase. For example, cat is a noun. In a sentence, the cat is sleeping. The noun cat is the head of the noun phrase, the cat. A pronoun stew, on the other ladle, are words that replace a whole noun phrase. They are used to avoid repetition or make less repetitive. For example, instead of saying John went to John's house, we can use the pronouns and say he went to his house. Here, he and his are pronouns that replace the noun phrase John. Now that we understand the difference, let's focus on the star of the segments of the show, noun stew. First up, we have the subject noun, the star of our dish. This noun functions as a subject of a sentence, indicating who or what performs the action. For example, in the sentence, she plays the piano, she is the subject noun, taking center stage as the one who is playing the piano. Next, we'll add a direct object noun, adding depth to our stew. These nouns receive the action of a transitive verb, answering the question what or whom. Picture this. He writes a song. Here, a song is the direct object noun, receiving an object of the verb write. Now, let's sprinkle in some indirect object nouns for extra flavor. These nouns receive the direct objects of the benefits from the action. Imagine saying, I gave her the book. Here, her is the indirect object noun, receiving the book with gratitude. Don't forget about the objects of preposition noun, providing structure to our stew. This noun follows a preposition and shows the relationship between other parts of the sentence. For instance, I gave the book to her. Here, her is the object of preposition noun, indicating the recipient of the action. But wait, there's more. We can't miss out on the subject complementing noun, adding richness to our dish. This noun follows a linking verb, copula, be, and describe or identifies the subject. Imagine saying this is her present. Here, her present is the subject complementing noun, describing what this is. Okay, last but not least, let's toss in some object complemented nouns to complete our culinary masterpiece. This noun follows certain verbs and provide additional information about the direct object. For example, I name her Susan. Here, Susan is the object complementing noun, providing more details about the object, which is her. And here you have it, a delectable noun stew simmering with various types of nouns, each adding its own unique flavor to each the mix. Bon appetit!
Hello there everyone! Now, To end it off like a usual cuisine, we're gonna bake a dessert. Let me show you exactly how to make a verb cake. For the first layer, we have the transitive or monotransitive verb layer, where it requires one direct object. For instance, my mother baked delicious cupcakes. The verb baked would be complemented by the direct object, cupcakes. Without doing so, we wouldn't know what my mother baked. Now moving on to our next layer, intransitive verbs. This one does not require an object. It can stand alone and still make sense, kind of like a solo performer. Let me give you an example. She laughs. In this sentence, the verb laughs does not need a direct object to complete the action. She's just laughing. The third layer of our verb cake is known as the ditransitive verbs, which requires two objects. It involves giving or transferring something from one person or thing to another. The first ingredient is the thing being given or transferred, and the second ingredient is the person or thing receiving what is being given. Let's use it in a sentence, shall we? Chef Honey gave her some sugar. Here, gave is the ditransitive verb because it involves giving something, which is sugar. Her is the person receiving the sugar, which is an indirect object. Sugar is what's being given, which is a direct object. For the fourth layer, we'll be using a special and yummy components of copula B. A copula, like B, helps connect two parts of a sentence. They're like the seasoning of dishes, am, is, are, was, and were. For instance, I am hungry. In this sentence, am is the copula that connects the subject, I, to hungry. The penultimate layer boils down to finite verb. A finite verb is a verb that shows when an action happens and who's doing it. You use it when you're talking about something that's happening right now, in the past, or in the future, and of course agrees with the subject. For example, present tense, Chef Tasha bakes a cake. For past tense, Chef Tasha baked the verb cake. And for future tense, Chef Tasha will be baking the cake later. In each of these sentences, the root word bake changes to match the time and the person doing the action. That's what makes them finite verbs. They're specific to the situation being described. Last but not least, non-finite verbs. They are not marked for tense and do not show agreement with the subject. They are the basic form of a verb without needing any extra information added to them. For instance, infinitive. To bake is fun. The word to bake is an infinitive, which functions as the subject of the sentence. For gerund, Chef Tasha enjoys baking. The word baking is a gerund, functioning as the object to the verb enjoys. And for participle, the running water in the kitchen sink is cold. The word running is a present participle, modifying the word water in the sentence. See, these verbs are not conditioned to any tense. Therefore, they are non-finite. As we learned from the start of the show, words keep changing, evolving, and growing. People add new parts to them to make new meanings. It's like how you can mix different ingredients to make a new dish. And these recipes, they aren't isolated from one another. One recipe can be mixed with another, just like words. How processes can merge and more. That's just how words work. Thanks for tuning in to our cooking show. Toodles!